On behalf of the Help Group, I'm excited to welcome you to this special afternoon with Dr. Temple Grandin, a visionary advocate whose work has transformed how we understand different kinds of minds. Her work reflects a belief that's at the very heart of the Help Group, that everyone deserves the opportunity to realize their potential, regardless of the challenges they face. For 85 years, that conviction has guided our work. It continues to shape how we grow, how we innovate, and how we serve our community. 2026 marks an important moment in Help Group history. As we expand our impact across Los Angeles, we're proud to share a new chapter in our journey. We've refreshed our identity, an identity that now reflects who we are and the doors that we open for the individuals and families that we serve. Before we welcome our distinguished speaker, I invite you to watch a brief, we promise, 1-minute video introducing the newly envisioned Help Group and the 6 global doors that frame our commitment to lifelong support.
All humans have needs. And at some point, we all need help. Help that understands. Help that lifts. Help that transforms. For 85 years, Help Group has been helping children, adults, and families across Los Angeles build resilience, create hope, and unlock their limitless potential. Guided by expertise and deep respect for every journey, we meet people where they are. Academically, emotionally, socially, and developmentally. Through a connected network of programs, we help people learn in specialized schools designed to nurture every mind. Thrive with therapy and support that builds strength. Work through vocational training and job coaching that foster self-reliance. Play in creative spaces where joy and expression flourish. Belong in residential homes that provide comfort and community. Grow through lifelong learning opportunities for parents and professionals. Because when help is given with compassion, dignity takes root. Help builds confidence. Help changes lives. Help creates hope.
Indeed, help creates hope. This is the core belief as to why we are here today. Because recognizing potential, honoring difference, and creating meaningful opportunity define not only our work, but that of today's speaker. Dr. Temple Grandin has transformed how the world understands autism and cognitive diversity. As a university distinguished professor of animal science at Colorado State University, a pioneering scientist, author, and global advocate, she has bridged lived experience and research in ways that have reshaped education, industry, and public perception. Through her influential books such as Thinking in Pictures, The Autistic Brain, Different, Not Less, and Visual Thinking, Dr. Grandin has championed practical strategies to support independence and real-world success. I think the energy in this room speaks for itself and tells me that Dr. Grandin's message is one that resonates with everyone here, just as she has inspired so many around the world. It is now my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Dr. Temple Grandin.
I think the first thing I'm going to do is get the mic off of this stand so I can hold it and move around. It's really great to be here today. And I was a little kid. I had no speech until age 4. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of early educational intervention. When I was 2 and 3 years old, I looked very severe, and I got into a really good program. And as a little kid, the emphasis was on speech. The emphasis was also on learning how to wait and take turns at games, all different kinds of games, to teach them how to wait. This is really important. And then skills, things like dressing, using a spoon to eat soup, you know, those are the things in a little kid's program that you'd want to do. Now, unfortunately, as I'm traveling around the U.S., I'm finding some places where a 3-year-old is on a 2-year wait list. That's absolutely unacceptable. So what do? We're going to have to start working with that kid right now. We'll call it church play or library play. Get some students working with them. But you got to do it right now. You can't wait 2 years. And what I have found is some people have the knack working with these little kids. Gauging this kid that's rocking, maybe spinning something, and you start out with a little turn-taking game with spinning whatever they're spinning. That's what you need to be doing. And the problem you've got with autism is you're going all the way from Einstein to somebody with much more severe handicaps. Now, I have problems with distraction, so let's get the pictures done quickly. And we're going to use that for a teachable moment. Because I have problems with, we can do all the pictures we want when I'm out there with the books. That doesn't bother me. But right there in front of me, the motion in front of me distracts my attention. And I still have problems with that. And I've worked 25 years in industrial construction. We're talking more about that later. All kinds of autistic people in that. They're the weird guy in the shop who can fix anything in the factory. And you know what? They're not getting replaced. We no longer have the weird guy in the factory who can fix anything. He's playing video games in the basement when he ought to be fixing things at a factory, which is a lot more fun than video games. I'll tell you how to get the adults off the video games. Auto mechanics. And it works. And they find the motors are a lot more interesting than the games. Also, you can forget video game design. AI's going to take that over. I'll tell you, the jobs that are AI-proof, going to be all the hands-on things. Cooking, things like that, but also high-end skilled trades, building things, people that invent equipment. The weird guy in the maintenance shop, that's not going to go away. Yeah, somebody's going to have to fix the robots. I'm watching the job market really carefully. Beginner programming jobs, they're not hiring. I can tell you that right now. AI is going to wipe that out. So we got to start thinking about the stuff AI is not going to wipe out. But we need the people who think differently. I'm finding expired elevator certificates everywhere I go. Broken escalators. Just stayed at the Luxor Hotel. Coolest piece of concrete you ever saw. You love concrete construction, you're going to love this building. I got a great picture of the inside of it on my phone. But it had a big broken main escalator with a giant barricade around it. The first thing you have to do is realize people think differently. I talk to a whole lot of business people, and I basically show them this same set of slides, because I'm trying to bridge the gap between the industrial world where there's jobs, really cool jobs, and the autism world. And when I was younger, I thought everybody thought in pictures the way I think. And if you watch the HBO movie, Temple Grandin, it shows exactly how I think. And the projects are accurate. I thought everybody thought the way I thought until I was in my late 30s. So the first step is learning that people think differently. And I've got lots of copies of my visual thinking book out there. Now, autistics are also good at details. This sign's at the Denver airport. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people walk by this sign every day. And nobody's laughing their head off. Why would I think this sign's funny? There's nothing funny about losing your stuff. Take a look at that boarding pass really closely. All right. Area 51. Gate A51. I actually went on a flight to Nashville out of gate A51 one time. Yeah, flying saucer on it? Key fob with a flying saucer on it? Yeah. Okay, being a visual thinker helped me with animals. Working with animals is something that visual thinkers can be really good at. And the first thing I did in working with animals was to get down in the chutes and see what cattle were seeing. Now, at the time I did this, I didn't know that other people didn't think in pictures. Everybody thought I was totally weird doing this. Well, now I know why they thought I was weird. Because if you think in words, you wouldn't be thinking about the cattle are going to see that reflection. and maybe 2 hours later it's gone. There's 3 basic types of thinking, and people can be mixtures. I'm what's called an object visualizer. And there's research, and all the research is in my visual thinking book. I'll tell you where my kind of mind really works: inventing mechanical equipment, working on cars, art and graphic design. AI is going to take a big chunk of that. Photography, there's still going to be a need for like wedding photography, things like that. Working with animals, and the very highly skilled trades. Those jobs are not going to go away. Now, where the object visualizers have a problem, we can't do algebra. Yeah, we're going all these math requirements, and you're going to be screening out our best visual thinkers that we need for fixing airplanes. And we've had some problems with airplanes lately, like an engine that caught on fire at the Denver airport because 2 parts were installed wrong. Who do I want putting the airplane engine together that I'm going to fly with? I want that gnarly old autistic mechanic. He may be very socially awkward. That's who I want putting that engine together, because they're not going to put parts in it backwards. And that's what happened. Broken escalators, broken elevators everywhere I go. These things aren't going away anytime soon. And when you take the escalator apart, the conveyors look like stuff we have in the beef packing plant. Yeah, it's strictly a mechanical thing. But I'm seeing a lot of smart visual thinkers that we really need being screened out with draconian math requirements. Does a veterinarian really need to have algebra and calculus? We're losing clinical skills in medicine. I'm just appalled. Heart doctors no longer using stethoscopes. Yeah, because you see, that's clinical skills, what you hear on the stethoscope. Now, I love NASA stuff, so I got a chance to visit the refurbished NASA control room from the 60s. The elevator was broken. We went up 5 floors so I could see this. This is so cool. Right down the giant ashtrays full of cigarette butts, because we got to be really authentic here. Now, there's a great program in Denver where they're teaching trades to autistics, adult autistics. Welding, auto mechanics. You see how somebody took parts and made flowers out of parts? That's the person I want working on my factory maintenance, my airplane engine. And right now in our educational system, we're putting all this emphasis on mathematics and the word thinking, and we're leaving the visual thinkers behind. We need them. They had that plane where the engine fell off, the cargo plane. I talked to a teacher whose dad is an airplane mechanic. He says that plane should have gone straight to the scrapyard. It had 6 weeks of heavy maintenance. It should have had one last flight, Marana, Arizona, or Roswell, Arizona, out where Area 51 is. And it's a giant hydraulic jaw that would chop it up. It's where it needed to go. Okay, here's your mathematical mind, your pattern thinkers. Object visualizers like me think in pictures. Everything's a picture. I think about what I had for breakfast this morning. I am seeing it. I'm also seeing the inside of the Luxor Hotel roof, which is the coolest concrete work you ever saw. We just came from there, and it had a broken escalator. But this is the mathematical mind. And there's research that shows that your visual thinker and your mathematical mind are really different. This is your degreed engineering, chemistry, physics, computer programming. Now, the real high-end ones that are doing AI, let's give them $750,000 a year. Beginner programmers, we're not hiring. Music and math go together. Art and mechanical go together. Yeah, we need to be getting a lot more stuff here with auto shop, fixing small engines, doing skilled trade stuff. Now, the community colleges are putting it in, but it's almost too late. Also, they're requiring way too much math requirements. You screen out the best ones. Oh, I just heard today about the autistic passenger that saw something wrong with the wing flaps on a plane while I was at the gate. He was right. And the captain thanked him in front of the whole airplane full of people as they had his crew come out and check the wing. Yeah, that's the person they want. And I'm seeing math kids not getting developed. Like you have a super good math kid, move them ahead, they get bored. And when they get bored, they get really naughty. No, you want to move them ahead in math. Here's a verbal thinker. writer, I need to put politician in there too, writer, finance, lawyers, thinks in words. Now, I love this new research that shows that language is not required for thinking, for either mathematical thinking or visual thinking. Some of the research is only 2 years old. Now, here's the studies that are outlined in my book, Visual Thinking, that shows the object visualizer like me, the non-mathematician, is very different than the mathematician. Different approaches to problem solving. And the thing is, you need to have both. Now, visual thinkers tend to think in analogies. So the picture files are stored back here. The front of the brain finds the files. So to use an old-fashioned analogy, the front of the brain is the card catalog. The occipital cortex is the library. Or today, Google is the card catalog, and some data center somewhere is the library. Okay, math kids, here's your challenge. Design me a data center that uses half the electric power. I like to give them the really hard projects because that's where somebody autistic is going to really excel. See, the problem we've got in autism is you're going from Einstein to somebody with much more severe problems. Like I went to your wood shop today. Now you've got some people where birdhouse is going to be about as far as they're going to get. But you've got others that maybe ought to be remodeling kitchens. But you also have to show them some of that stuff. I can remember Popular Mechanics used to have so many good drawings on how to remodel and fix stuff in your house. And people can be mixtures of the different kinds of thinking. But one kind of thinking kind of predominates. And we need all the types. Turns out I've got a huge visual thinking circuit in my brain. Boy, when I saw these slides, this just blew my mind. Now let's look at different ways that different kinds of students do this project. We're going to design a planet. So we got teams of high school students in art, teams of high school students in science and math, and teams of high schools in literature. So the art students make weird, crazy crystals, polar bears, all kinds of crazy stuff. Science students draw you a boring circle, tell you about the atmosphere and the gravity. Literature students did some splotches, but you know what was bad? Verbal thinkers make no plans. Everybody else made plans. There's a tendency to have big concepts, like how do we make the classroom work better for people on the spectrum? Let's do something about the LED lights. There are some LED lights that are giving people migraines. There's all different kinds of LED lights. And right now, my student's doing some work to find out which ones cattle like. They liked the one I thought they would hate, the one with the flicker. But the one that was expensive, it had an extra spike in the color spectrum that was not in the manufacturer's specs. There's a lot of different LEDs. And so what would I recommend right now? If there's a problem, let the student pick out one he likes, get it really bright, put it in a lamp next to their desk to blot out the LED. But there's some LEDs that are really bad. We have a restaurant we can no longer go to. 2 of my students get migraines there because of weird yellow lights. Okay, object visualizers see risk. In the visual thinking book, I discussed the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster. It was a visual thinking mistake. I can't design a nuclear reactor. But it's not a very good idea when you live next to the sea, but it's super important electric emergency cooling pump in a non-waterproof basement. Simple waterproof doors, it would not have happened, period. Verbal thinkers tend to overgeneralize, but they'll be much more logical in their thinking. I kind of thinking, I kind of jump around, and I'll give you an analogy of how I think. Well, I'm gluten-free, and the only flour that's decent has about 5 different starch sources in just the right ratio. Well, an alloy for a jet airplane engine is a ratio of metals. So when I'm reading about a new airplane engine made out of a special alloy, I saw the label for red mill flour. You see, they are both alloys. Ones are just a ratio of different metals, the other one's the right ratio mixture of different starch sources. All right, that's an example of visual thinking and problem solving. Now, when the patent office first started, visual thinkers ruled. Everything was a mechanical device. When the patent office started, we've got a problem today. Where are the visual thinkers. Half of all 3D printers come from Europe. This is the state-of-the-art chip-making machine, the one we don't want the Chinese to get a hold of, based on our mathematics, but it's from Holland. You know why it's from Holland? Because in 9th grade, they can choose tech or university. In Italy, you can choose university, tech, or art and fashion. Yeah, we kind of stick our nose up at the visual thinking. We don't recognize it. The military recognizes it. I talked to a flight attendant who flunked out of college, and the Army tested her mechanical aptitude tops. You know what she did? She fixed airplanes. Maybe she could decide which ones she fixed, but she was going to fix airplanes, period. Military values mechanical thinking. Yes, and aviation people are worried. I'm worried about some of this airplane stuff. This is not good. We need the visual thinkers working on this repair stuff. And they had German mirrors in this device. Now, a beef plant, we still know how to build, because there's one guy who can't do algebra. He builds beef plants. He's building one right now in Amarillo. Chicken equipment and pork equipment we have to buy from Europe. Europe, not China, Europe. And it goes back to the educational system. I went to the pre-stressed concrete show about 3 weeks ago. Big mixers, like when they make the big beams they make bridges out of, giant mixers from Italy and Germany. Yeah. How about hay harvesting equipment? And if you want to see mechanical when I talk about it, look up Apollo chicken harvester. Apollo chicken harvester. It's a machine that picks up live chickens so that people don't have to hand pick them up. It's from Italy. Yeah, we've got a problem here. Cloth for the Mars rover. Oh, she's taking a selfie of herself landing on Mars. The fabric's from Europe. And that's me standing in the middle of the Steve Jobs Theater screaming, "We don't make it anymore." Well, I can tell you, aviation needs some old visual thinking mechanics. You know who I want fixing that airplane? Engine, the F word, I won't say it. Okay, every airplane part is going to be adjective with the F word. But that's the person that I want putting that engine together, not the one that's going to put parts in it backwards. We paid the price for taking hands-on classes out of the schools. I think it's really good you're doing cooking here. I was terrible at musical instruments. Another kid's going to take off with them. Woodworking, welding. I wasn't interested in acting in the theater, but I loved making costumes and scenery. Yep, hands-on classes. These jobs AI is not going to touch. Auto shop. Now here's a fabulous program in Colorado, TACT, Teaching Autistic Citizens Trades. And they do welding and they do auto shop. And they have contracts with car dealerships to put the trained mechanic right into that car dealership. No interviews. And there's a job coach there for another 2 months. Okay, hygiene can be an issue, even in auto shop. I just talked to a parent where her son won't do hygiene because soap is slippery. I'm going, let's use powdered soap. Okay, so I'm immediately going into problem-solving mode. Doesn't like gunky? We have to find some powdered soap that's safe to put on humans. But immediately trying to think of a solution to the problem, because losing a bunch of jobs over that, that's not okay. That's something where they got really hard with me. Solid stick deodorant, non-scented, I can't even feel it. And the soap I'm fine with. My grandfather was the co-inventor of the autopilot for airplanes. MIT-trained mathematician, working with a guy, an autistic guy, came up with a crazy new idea for an autopilot. And they tinkered and they tinkered and they tinkered in a rented loft. But the stolen version was in every plane in World War II. They needed a lawyer. This is where you really do need the different minds. And my nephew went out and bought the original parts of the autopilot out on eBay. And I took a picture of that on my brother's kitchen counter. Think that's pretty cool. Okay, I'm worried that our educational system is screening out object visualizers. Very, very worried. Back when I was in industrial construction, every meat company had their own engineering department. 25 years ago, they shut those down. They were farming the work out the local shops. They're all retiring out. The one shop that's left, ripping them off at 4 times the price. No, we need these thinkers, and we really need them. And we need to maybe substitute geometry for algebra, and then some very practical math, like how do I figure out how many concrete mixer loads I got to buy to fill some forms up? No, we need to do something with these math requirements. I have never passed an algebra requirement. I just got back from the Western Veterinary Conference. That's why I was at the Luxor, because the Mandalay Bay had the Western Veterinary Conference in it. I gave a talk there. I can't do the prerequisites for vet school. So I ended up in this wonderful field called industrial process equipment. No license required. Just don't mess with the electrical and don't mess with the structure of the building. I was very careful about my boundaries. This jet is owned by somebody who can't do algebra. All right, if you're into hydraulics, this is going to be the prettiest thing you ever saw. Prettiest thing you ever saw. This is a big hydraulic power unit that runs an entire beef floor. Yeah, you can mess with this stuff all you want. Hydraulics, pneumatics, that's what runs industrial equipment. Now, I developed a piece of equipment called a center track restrainer system. Every beef plant's got one. I designed the front end of every Cargill beef plant in North America. I think that's doing pretty good for someone who can't do higher math. It's the visual thinking. And I worked with undiagnosed autistic people that owned shops. And they'll say in the schools, well, we can't let them take shop because of liability. In my generation, special ed owned the shops. And I am not saying that as a joke. And if you really want to see what the visual thinkers can do, look up the Apollo chicken harvester from Italy. Well, another problem I'm seeing is kids are not graduating from Legos to tools. Big ones that are much more fun to play with. They're a whole lot more fun to play with. And probably mixed on a German mixer, because these are made in a factory. Okay, who builds a big food processing plant? The object visualizer with maybe a 1 semester class in CAD computer drawing lays out the entire factory. SketchUp, free computer drawing software. All right, let's draw the concrete work in the Luxor. That's going to be a fun assignment. I've just tried looking it up and they don't really show it. It's such a cool building from a concrete standpoint. I'm trying to figure out how they formed it. It was poured in place. They'd have to have giant columns in there to hold the forms up when they were making that. So the object visualizer does all the mechanical devices, but we need the math minds for refrigeration. Food processing plants have to have refrigeration. That requires mathematics. We don't touch that. This is where to make a complicated factory that needs both kinds of minds, because it has to have refrigeration. In writing my book, Visual Thinking, I wrote the first drafts. They were kind of disorganized, and Betsy, my verbal co-writer, she smoothed them all out. She straightened them all out. That's different minds working together in a complementary manner. I want to emphasize that. Architects make a building pretty. The engineers make it safe. The engineers would just make you a boring box if you didn't have the architects. 20% of the people I worked with, and I've worked with every major meat company, mainly 70s, 80s, 90s, over 25 years in industrial construction. 20% of them undiagnosed autistic. The dyslexics actually were diagnosed. Big shops, owning big shops, inventing equipment, not just building it, inventing. I've looked up their patent portfolios, and not stupid inventions. Good things the industry is still using. And most of them can't do algebra. Yeah, let's let geometry be the substitute. Grandparents come up to me all the time and they discover they're autistic when the kids get diagnosed. But those grandparents learn working skills early. Paper routes at age 11, I know that's gone. How about substitutes for that? Such as walking the neighbor's dog. You've got to start working for somebody who's not family. Church volunteer jobs, helping a senior neighbor clean up their house, where you're working on a schedule for somebody outside the family. Instant illegal, they need to be getting real jobs. I was pleased here that they were getting jobs at Target and other places, doing jobs out in the community. The thing I want to ask you, what would happen to some of the top innovators today? How about little Mikey here? Filthy, grubby little brat. Dropped out of school at age 12, but he had a chance to look at great art. That's exposure. You got to expose kids. Maybe in your shop, let's expose the kids to more complicated things to build, to the drawings, the cool stuff that they could build. Exposure, then mentoring. Okay, he was running around, the churches were making great art. They were commissioning it. And then he starts making stuff. Then he's pulled into a shop and mentored. Exposure, then mentoring. So how to end up in the cattle industry? I got exposed to it when I was 15. I also got interested in optical illusion rooms because I saw him in a movie. Steve Jobs probably on the spectrum. Bullied in school? Oh, I was bullied horribly in high school. Einstein, no speech until age 3. How about Thomas Edison? He had a paper route, and there was a telegraph operator that taught him how to use a telegraph. So that was mentoring. And here's little Billy. And it's official, he's on the spectrum. He has a book called Source Code. Now, little Billy and I were very similar in how we were brought up. When we were 8 years old, we had to sell stuff for charity, go up and knock on doors. You know, there's a scene in the HBO movie where I get the editor's card. Well, I had the guts to do that because I sold candy for charity. We also had to be hosts and hostesses at parents' parties, learn how to talk to adults. Some of the best training you could have. You know what else we were both taught? We were taught to give back. Look what he's done with medical stuff. What I have done with my book money, I put about 25 students through graduate school and PhDs. That's what I've done with speaking engagement and book money. We were taught to give back. A Nobel Prize winner was 50% more likely to have an arts and crafts hobby. That's another reason for keeping all these classes. Tips for working with minds that are different. Let's avoid what I call chaos jobs. McDonald's crazy busy lunch window. Let's just avoid that. Too much rapid multitasking. Tasks that involve a sequence. Make a pilot's checklist. This is how you clean the ice cream machine. Step 1, step 2, step 3, because if the boss just goes yakety yak, 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 they won't remember the steps. Also, vagueness doesn't work. Changing bosses can be dangerous. There was an autistic guy that lost a job with the Department of Motor Vehicles because the new boss thought he was rude. Well, he might have said, "Give me your license." Well, that sounds kind of rude. All you'd have to do is say it like this: please have your license. Coaching where you tell them exactly what to do. Or you might say, now watch Susie, how she interacts with a customer. I want you to copy that. You can't just say you're rude to customers. That is too vague. And we got to limit the video game playing. Some of these math kids, when they get bored, they're going down rabbit holes so bad online, I don't want to discuss them, they're so bad. A lot of rubbish online. The other thing that concerns me about AI is the amount of rubbish it's reading. It does a lot of foraging around in the dumpster. That concerns me. What's the ultimate goal of education? Where's a student 10 years after graduation? I was doing my first big projects that were shown in the HBO movie. So how did I sell my work? I would show off my drawings. That's how I sold my work. Show off my work. And you got to show it to the right people, and it's not the human resources department. It's the plant manager, it's the cattle buyer, it's the feed yard manager owner or ranch owner. That's where you show off the work. This is the drawing right here that I used to sell the Cargill Company. This was sent to them in late 80s. You might wonder why it curved. As you go around the bend, they're going back to where they came from. Detail. Oh, some of the computer drafting now, it's terrible. They're leaving out all the detail. They don't put the reinforcement rod positioning in it. Some of the drawings are just horrible. No, they need that visual thinker that's going to put all that detail in there. So they got sent that. They got sent that. Don't put too much junk in it. You just want to show off, wow. And I love the fact the HBO movie duplicated all of my projects. And there's a new movie out now. It's called An Open Door. And it's about my later life Colorado State doing teaching. And I had a nice brochure. And I just worked as an independent consultant. Then they also got sent that drawing right there. I do 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups every night in the hotel. This burst of exercise, that helps me to be calmer. I just was talking to an autistic lady this morning. She was getting frazzled with all the emails and stuff. And I said, you need to have a time for an hour. Put your phone in airplane mode, close the laptop down, and you're going to shut the stuff off. You can have a designated time where you do that, and then you answer the emails. Just, designate that time. But the bursts of hard physical activity are helpful. Also, my work experience, Mother found me a sewing job just in the neighborhood. It was a lady who worked out of her home, and she altered clothing. And I took apart the garments and hand-hemmed them. I was cleaning horse stalls at 15, but there's a lot of informal kind of jobs like this you can just find in the neighborhood. And these things cost nothing to implement. Then at 16, I was out at my aunt's ranch. And then when I was 17 years old, I had a little sign painting business. And I'd show people my sign painting portfolio. Yeah, just show off stuff. And then when I was in college, and I'm seeing bad stuff, and I've seen it real recently, kids graduating from college with honors ending up in the basement. They hadn't learned one work skill. No, when they're in college, they need to be doing career-relevant jobs. I worked in a research lab, and I worked as an aide with a kid with autism. These jobs were just set up through connections. Use your connections. I just talked to a flight attendant the other day, and the kid's really interested in aerospace. They said, we know some people at Boeing. And I said, use your connections. Forget all the computer garbage. Half of all jobs are connections and networking. And people get so hung up on the autism, they don't see these connections. I just talked to a family the other day about a real estate office. Yeah, you can put the 13-year-old in a real estate office just to do some paperwork. Just do it in the neighborhood. Got to learn work skills. Back doors into jobs. Half of all jobs are backdoor. People aren't seeing them. They're too hung up on the label. Party hostess, I already talked to you about that. Also, I had an allowance when I was 8 years old, 50 cents a week. That's about $5 today. I could buy 5 Superman comics. But if I wanted a 69-cent airplane, I had to save for 2 weeks. I was learning that at a very young age. I just can't believe how cheap things were in the early 70s. I bought a top-of-the-line pickup for $5,000. Well, you wouldn't do that now. Friends through shared interest. This is really important. Because the only places I was not bullied, riding horses, where I had friends through shared interest. For another kid, it might be band, 4-H, FFA. I really recommend those programs. And what I really like in FFA, they have a very disciplined way of doing meetings that is really good for teaching social skills. And then I was also fixed up this ugly shed and I made it nice, learning a lot of working skills. I was painting signs at the Arizona State Fair. That's me up there. How did I get to paint that goofy sign? Because I showed off a portfolio, my sign jobs. Driving, it's going to take longer. But if I hadn't learned to drive, there would have been no cattle industry. It's that simple. And it's going to take longer. Okay, so around here, you find the stadium parking lot. You start in the middle of it. You might be there for a month, 20 minutes a day for a month, learning how to operate the vehicle. I'm talking about going into it slowly. After I got my license, I went a year before I did freeways. Going into it slowly, but we're going to do it. I'm very worried that drivers that often shoves them into it way too quickly. We need to kind of make the transition slow, but make it. I'm seeing too many parents doing everything for their kid. I'm appalled. 16 years old honest student, never gone shopping, never had a bank account. Now I'm concerned that money is less physical now. So every time you shop, you print out the bank statement before you go. And then when you get back home, you print it out again and show the money coming out. I want to make it more real. You've got to make the money more real. So they understand, well, I bought this meal at McDonald's and that cost a certain amount of money. Mentors. I had some fantastic mentors. And one of them was Jim the contractor. He seeked me out to design projects. I had some very good mentors. And my mother taught me to read at age 8, phonics, Wizard of Oz. The alphabet song has half the sounds. I'm a believer in the alphabet song. Some of the nonsense I see online for teaching phonics, no. Let's just learn the sounds. And then she'd read a page of the book. I'd sound out half a sentence. Then gradually, I read more and more, and she read less and less. It took one semester after school to go from no reading in the 3rd grade to 6th grade level reading. Elementary school teacher, super good at it. Science teacher got me motivated to study because a lot of other bad grades were goofing off. Still haven't passed algebra, still failed the SAT in math. But so did the guy with the corporate jet. He's building a plant in Amarillo, right under Tyson's nose. Right now, the walls are up, so there's no NDA anymore. The walls are up, you can see it from the road. Sensory issues, they are real. Now the thing is, the reason why I'm showing all this industrial stuff is I'm trying to show you really cool stuff you can do. I'm trying to bust you out of the autism mold. Because some of the most funnest stuff I ever did was in construction. I still got to find out how they poured the pour in the roof of the Luxor. Couldn't find it online. But I bet you they had to put some massive poles up there, probably made out of utility poles, hold the forms up since it was poured. And that was back in the day, no computer drawings. The Luxor was made with hand-done drawings. Same as the tent at the Denver airport. That was made by 2 mathematical geniuses. No maintenance. It's been beautiful. Okay, sensory issues. Okay, sometimes a kid or an adult can learn to tolerate a noise if they control it. Let the kid turn on the dreaded vacuum cleaner. I've seen vacuum cleaners go to favorite toys when they turn it on and they control it. Tools in the shop, they control it. If you wear headphones all the time, it will make hearing sensitivity worse. Have them with you, that's control. And if the fire alarm goes off, you put them on. Or some other really loud noise, you put them on. But don't wear them all the time. Got to find things that don't itch. Yep, I wear Walmart khakis. I have to wash them twice. Wash the clothes that go against the skin. You know, for girls right now, they have all these little leggings. Oh, those would be just fine with me. Loved that kind of stuff. You know, there's comfortable things that you can wear that's not a sweatpants. But the sensory things are real, and this would be my top area of research, just ways to desensitize. Also, on the hygiene thing, okay, this guy that can't stand slippery, slimy, let's try a powdered soap. Maybe that will work, because, I mean, you lost 5 jobs over that? Yeah, no, that's not acceptable. Now, visual issues. I don't have visual issues, but some kids can't stand escalators because they can't see to get on and off them, or they'll see the print jiggle on the page. Eye exam, more or less normal. There's stuff wrong back here. And the brain has got image stabilization software. Nobody knows how it works, because your eyes move all the time, but this room isn't jerking all around. Something's wrong with that. And you know what fixes it sometimes? Try different colored paper. Light blue, light lavender, light gray. And I have a book called The Girl Who Loves Cows. I'm not sure if Brad brought that with him. It's on pastel pages. I've had people pick it up and go, I can read. Now, the problem we've got on evidence-based, it's only a subgroup of dyslexia. But when it works, it really works. It's colored paper. It can't hurt you. And it's very, very cheap and inexpensive to try. Some people will get image breakup. I don't have this. Print jiggling on the page, that can really interfere with reading. This can also happen with head injuries too. Okay, let's find if you have the bad LEDs that flicker. One way you can find lights that flicker, pull this thing out, put it in slow motion video. You'll find the lights that flicker. That's one of the problems. But there's also weird stuff going on with the colored spectrum that we found out in our cattle experiment, and we're trying to figure that out right now. So let's say you have windows, get that kid's desk over by the window. No windows? Then let the kid go into the LED store, pick out one he likes, put it on a lamp next to the desk, and let them wear a hat, because this is a real problem. We right now have a restaurant I cannot take 2 of my students to because they put in weird yellow lighting that gave 2 of my students migraines. We don't go there anymore. I don't know why it's a problem. I talked about the pastel paper. Also, laptops and tablets don't flicker. Those screens never flicker. The big screens, some flicker, some don't. Some individuals need sensory breaks. Scheduled sensory breaks. Part of the problem with eye contact is when you're looking at the eyes, it distracts you and makes it harder to hear. Sensory issues are real, and they'd be my #1 area of research, just ways to treat them. They can be very debilitating. Now, this is a paper, the title is Environmental Enrichments and Effective Treatment for Autism. That is the title of the paper. And this is an evidence-based approach for desensitizing the sensory system. You stimulate 2 senses, like maybe you hold a cold water bottle and smell peppermint. So you're stimulating across the senses, always varying the things. And it seems to be helpful. And that's the title of the paper. Now, non-speaking individuals, some of them can learn to type. We need to be doing that. These are great books here. If you're working with non-speaking, you take screen pictures of that. And these are people that type completely independently. Nobody is touching the person or the thing they type on. That's really important, because it's the only way you can rule out cueing. Can't touch the device, whatever it is, even if it's a piece of cardboard with letters on it or something fancier. Also, a laptop's bad because if I press the key here, the print appears up there. They can't attention shift. So use a tablet, or you're going to have to take the keyboard, put it up on a box, so the print appears right next to the keyboard. Processor speed, I still have problems with this. Rapid back and forth chit-chat conversation, I just can't follow them. Rapid multitasking, there are certain jobs I want to avoid. Rapid response to a question. And when you're working with the little kids, slow down when you talk to them. Also, give them time to respond. They're like a slow computer. Long strings of verbal instruction, that's where you use the pilot's checklist. And I have problems with interrupting conversations. I just can't get the timing right. I know it's rude. These are problems I still have. Attention shifting slowness. But if I'm doing a design job, like working on a drawing, it doesn't affect this. Okay, this is an ancient old paper by Ami Klin with some of the very first eye tracking software that ever was made, watching Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Look at how many times the normal is going back and forth between the eyes. The autistics there are trying to read the lips. Very little attention shift. Little kids, slow down when you talk to them. Encourage them to use their words. What do I want out of 3-year-olds? I'll tell you what I want. Language, if I can get it. Turn-taking in all kinds of activities. Skills like dressing. And the child should make this progress and love going to therapy. Those are the 4 things I want out of little ones. Real simple. There's all kinds of arguments about different teaching methods. I don't really care what you call the teaching methods. I want at least 10 hours of one-to-one training with an effective teacher that gets those things. Okay, teachable moments. Okay, if I stir my drink with my finger, instead of screaming, no, mother would say, use the spoon. People think it's disgusting when you use your finger. Give the instruction instead of screaming no. Okay, we're in a store, I run behind the counter. Let's say we're at the airlines and your kid runs behind the counter. Instead of screaming, you say, only the ticket agents can go behind the counter. You give the instruction. Then you might have to go in there and get them out of there. But instead of screaming no, you say only the ticket agents can go behind the counter. You give the instruction. Well, it turns out working memory, I have terrible working memory. Still have terrible working memory. Another problem is all panic attacks. As I went through my 20s, my panic attacks got worse and worse and worse and worse. And when I got to early 30s, my health was totally falling apart completely with panic attacks, colitis that wouldn't stop. I was terrified of public speaking and terrified, especially this airplane right here. This airplane is called a Fokker. And sometimes air traffic control likes to not say it carefully. We'll just leave it at that. And when that thing put the gear down, I thought the bottom of the plane was falling out. Well, if you learn more about it, I wanted to put the gear down. You got to take the scary thing and make it interesting. So I got to fly to Puerto Rico on an old Constellation with a load of Holstein heifers, early 70s Miami airport. It was the airplane, abuse of airplane zone. And these heifers peed and crapped all over this plane. And when we got back to Miami, pee was dripping out of the bottom of the plane. So we can let them pee and crap all over it, and they still fly. That helped get me over being afraid of airplanes. Make the scary thing interesting. Fear, it's the main emotion in autism. And that's now controlled with a low dose of antidepressant drugs. That is described in detail in my book, Thinking in Pictures. Visual Thinking with the white cover is my new book. Thinking in Pictures is my older book. And I describe using antidepressant medication. And you use very low doses. The mistake made is too high a dose. That is still true. Mistakes still being made. No, I don't think I'd be here today if I hadn't gone on those meds. Also, another thing that helped me was deep pressure. I got the idea from a cattle squeeze chute. And this helped desensitize me to touch because I could control the squeeze machine. This is one of the very important things. Okay, now let's say it's dogs barking. I can't control dogs. But you could have an audio recording of this that the kid could control, that they play like gradually louder and louder. Then they might be able to tolerate dogs barking. See, when the noxious stimulus is controlled by the individual, it's better tolerated. And here are some simple ways to do pressure. Some kids are pressure responders, and some are not. Sensory issues are variable. You got to show kids interesting stuff to get them interested in interesting stuff. And I saw optical illusion room in a movie they showed in high school. My science teacher said, you got to figure out how to make this yourself. They weren't going to just show me how to do it. See, that's really important. And that's Penrose tiling from Stephen Hawking. You know what Stephen Hawking had to say about disability? Concentrate on those things your disability doesn't prevent you from doing well. And they're going to be showing the Paralympics real soon. I'm just amazed at some of the stuff they're doing. Let's get kids exposed to interesting science stuff, like science and nature. Interesting stuff like that. That's patterns in math. Plants have got math. And that is some interesting sources of information. Now, I understand we're going to be doing a moderated question and answer. So we're time to do that now.
Thank you. So first of all, we want to thank you for an amazing talk and all of the insights that you gave. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Lori Stevens, and I'm the Senior Director of Autism and Clinical Programs for Help Group. And we have asked everybody to submit questions prior to the talk, and I've tried to kind of combine several of them that had some themes, and we'll ask them to you, and then if we have some time, we can take some additional questions from the audience. I have to put on my glasses for this, though. So what's one problem that you think needs to be solved right now in terms of helping autistic people achieve their limitless potential, and do you have a solution for that problem?
First of all, that's too general for me.
Okay.
I am going to, first of all, break it up into age groups.
Sure.
Are we dealing with an early intervention child? That's going to be under 5, preferably 3. And then I have a pretty standard response, which I just gave you on the early intervention. And then you've got, okay, an elementary school kid. Okay, I want to get some idea of the level. Speech level, and then what is the problem? See, the problem with the verbal thinker is you overgeneralize. And I kind of put them in 4 big categories, like early intervention kid, elementary school, high school, adults. Okay. And then I'm very concerned about not making the transition to work. Because the thing that makes me crazy is I worked with so many shop people. These people were owning businesses. And they weren't just building this equipment, inventing and patenting. Like a plant would come in and says, I need a machine that will do this. I watched them whip it up in the shop and turn around and patent it. I spent 25 years out there in that.
Yeah. What specific advice would you have for some of the students, the Bridgeport students, let's say, that you observe today, as they're transitioning out of school and into either a trade program, a job? Is there one piece
One
of
thing,
advice?
sudden transitions don't work.
Yeah.
That's a basic principle.
Okay.
Let's have a gradual transition, starting with paper route substitutes at 11 and chores for younger kids. But with the paper route, we don't have those, I know that. So dog walking for the neighbors. I'm going to recommend things that the lowest income family can do. Church volunteer jobs and dog walking for the neighbors, maybe helping a senior clean their house every week. These are things that they can do in the neighborhood. But it's very important that the boss is outside the family. Because I'll have the mom says, well, he walks our dog. No, he needs to walk Mr. Jones's dog every morning at 6:30 for a half an hour walk.
Yeah. Great, thank you. What's one thing that you hope the next generation of educators will understand about autism that the previous or current?
One of the things we need to be doing is aptitude for mechanical skills needs to be respected. The military does respect that. They take a flight attendant, this is again a specific example, who flunked out of college because he couldn't do algebra. They said, you can fix this plane over there or that one over there, but you're fixing planes. And boy, on these big military planes, giant hydraulic ramps, yeah, that's kind of stuff that she'd be fixing. And then I said, why are you a flight attendant? She said, I wanted to travel. I said, but when you get sick of that, you've got something you can go back into.
Great.
But you see, that's a specific example. This lady flunked out of college, and we discussed the problems of visual thinkers being screened out. Now, we also have to do things to teach the mechanical skills, like play with pulleys, play with levers, play with ramps, so that you see firsthand some of these principles.
Right. This is a bit of a longer question, but this person stated, as a parent supporting my autistic child, especially now in young adulthood, I struggle between respecting their autonomy versus needing to push them out of their comfort zone so that they might be able to do something that's new or uncomfortable for them. What advice do you have?
We stretch. We don't throw them on the deep end of the pool. I'm not putting them on that chaos takeout window. We don't go there. Well, there's certain jobs I'd like to just avoid. We stretch and give choices. When I was afraid to go to my aunt's ranch, mother said you can go for a week and come home, or you can stay all summer. Not going wasn't a choice. You give some choice, but we have to stretch. I have a book out there called The Loving Push that addresses this issue. And we have to stretch, but we don't throw them in the deep end of the pool. And always have some choice. You know, like let's say scratchy clothes. Well, there's a lot of, let's go around the stores and we can look at a lot of different things. No, I would have really been into those leggings. Like if I had to wear dresses, I'd wear leggings with them. And the clothes we got available now is so much more comfortable than the junk we had. Nylons, scratchy petticoats, hated them. But one accommodation that was made for the petticoat is I had an undershirt that I could tuck into my underpants so the scratchy band did not go against me. You see, mother's attitude was high expectations with accommodations. Like we went on a ferry when we went on vacation with a horrible loud horn. They didn't make me sit under that horn. I rode in the indoor cabin underneath. Yes, we're going to go on that boat. Today it'd be noise-canceling headsets that didn't exist in the 50s. So I rode in the cabin underneath. But we are going on the boat.
Yeah, I think I love that concept of choice.
Yeah, you give some choice.
Yeah.
I could go for a week or I could go all summer. Not going wasn't a choice.
Exactly.
But, you know, when I'm thinking about the guy with all the soap being slimy, then I thought, wait a minute, powdered soap. We just got to find a powdered soap that is safe to use on skin. But that might solve that problem. Then it would be scratchy, and he might be just fine with that. Losing 4 or 5 jobs over that warehouse job you lost over that? No, and the, laundering the clothes. There's some things where you kind of have to conform, and some people, when the shower hits them, it hurts. Well, what I do is I put my hand in the shower and I get it just right before I get in it. And then I put the towel over the towel rod so I can blot my face. That also helps. Maybe that might help some people. No, we're going to have to overcome that one.
Right. So I think choice and maybe some sensory,
Give some choice
tolerance.
and they get some control. And it seemed with all the soaps, is a slimy aspect was a problem. Well, powdered soap's not going to be slimy.
Right.
And we just have to find something that's safe on the skin. I don't know if I want to use laundry detergent. It might not be safe. But
Probably not, but that's a good idea. I think the idea that there's always choice, there's always some way maybe to look at different clothing.
well, what I did when the boss slammed down the deodorant with me, I didn't like the gunky roll-ons we had in the 70s. He found some arid cream in a jar, and that's what he slammed on the desk.
Yeah.
And I used that. But this is something where we're losing jobs over that. Yeah, we've got to find some way around that.
You're right. Right. So somebody also wrote in and said, I have a 23-year-old grandson on the spectrum. He now predominantly sits and plays on the computer, and you alluded to this in your talk. Do you have any suggestions as to how to make him a more productive member of society and be able to earn some money?
Well, if he's playing video games, there's been 5 or 6 successes with slowly introducing them to auto mechanics. This has actually been very successful, and I've asked them, what made you quit the video games? Motors were more interesting. And you have to gradually replace the video game with something else. And there's been 5 or 6 young adults where that's been very successful, and they've ended up with jobs like Jiffy Lube to more complicated mechanics, and they've kept the jobs.
Yeah. And I know there used to be video games, like there was a video game Roller Coaster Tycoon that taught you how to build an amusement park, and then the people would come to it and react. So, you would learn, should your roller coasters be too high? What kind of food do you need? And so there are a few things that then that
Well, you
person
can
might want
learn
to go
how
on
to-
and design a roller coaster.
Yeah, the thing is, we got to think a lot of that's being done by computer right now.
Right.
I want to emphasize the jobs that are not going to go away.
Right.
And fixing cars. Okay, let's say you take your electric car. You have a lot of sensors on that. Those can break. Those have to be fixed. I went to a university just recently that had a guy that can fix any kind of scientific equipment, and that every department reserves hours with him. And they don't know what they're going to do when he retires. He can fix just about any scientific piece of equipment.
It's amazing. Yeah. So there were several questions about how you can help your child be authentic and not feel like they need to mask. What advice do you have for those young adults or children?
Well, I wear stuff that's kind of eccentric. I have to give an example. I had a girl call me up. She liked to wear see-through plastic dresses with day glow stuff on it. And I said, why don't we get a black dress? And then we can have a day glow belt, a day glow purse, and a day glow earrings.
Right.
In other words, tone it down a little bit. And to where it's eccentric, but a see-through plastic dress is not appropriate work attire. So you can, tone it down a little bit. Now, the thing that'd be difficult for me would be trying to maintain super rapid chit-chat conversation. You see, like I had one autistic adult at a meeting I went to in Des Moines, Iowa. I said, how do you define masking? If I come out completely exhausted at the end of the day, then I do too much masking. But just what I call business social, shaking hands with people, being polite, not being a rude slob. Yeah, there's some things where you have to conform a bit, but I have to say maybe my clothes are a bit eccentric. That's sort of become my uniform. It also always feels the same, because I have a work version of it too. When the shirts get worn out, they get worn at work.
Yeah. And so would you say that for parents, if their child does want to dress a bit eccentric?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Purple hair is fine. But where I'm going to draw the line, rude, filthy, dirty slob. The hygiene thing is something where we're going to have some conformance. I just heard about a guy who lost 3 or 4 jobs over this.
Right.
You know, warehouse job, supermarket job. There's a point where even on a construction site, this is not acceptable.
Right.
And so it's okay. I think the purple hair is fine. But you just can't be a rude, filthy, dirty slob. There's a point where you have to do some conforming. And then you can do quite a bit of eccentric after that.
Right.
At the veterinary conference, I ran into a girl, all these piercings and everything. She was on the spectrum. But she looked really nice. I mean, it was,
Yep.
you can, I've seen dreadlocks done really, really well. As far as I'm concerned, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the message of being able to be yourself, but understanding the consequences sometimes of
Well,
the,
I think it's specific examples. I was on a plane last year, and this big, huge guy with big muscles sits beside me in an undershirt and boxer shorts. Not a T-shirt, strap, not a basketball uniform, underwear, beside me on a plane last year. That's not 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't consider that acceptable. And then as he left the plane, he put on a hoodie. But it was an undershirt with straps. It was not a T-shirt. Come on now, dude. Really? You went on a flight in your underpants. Oh. No, I do not
Yeah.
consider that acceptable.
No, absolutely. I wouldn't either.
No, that's gone too far. You see, my mind thinks in specific examples.
Yes. That's a good one.
And it's true, and it's recent,
Yeah.
It was within the last 6 months.
Well, there is a lot of talk now about how people dress on airplanes and
Well,
how we
Spirit,
used to dress up.
he would have been kicked off of Spirit. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grandin. Dr. Berman is going to come back up and present you.
I think I speak for everyone today to say what an inspiration you are. We have a Spirit of Hope Award. You
Okay.
bring hope to everybody here,
Okay.
and we thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much.